Sure, let's travel back to ancient Greece, where Socrates was thinking about the basic value of human life. What's the real deal with human life? It needs to be looked at, but how? It's all about using our brains. So, we need to use our smarts to get real knowledge about the world. Once we've got that knowledge, we've also figured out the meaning of human existence at the same time. This is what Socrates is getting at with another one of his ideas. What's the deal with this idea? It's all about how virtue is actually knowledge. And how do we get this knowledge? By thinking things through and coming up with concepts. This kind of knowledge is all about concepts, not the kind of innate knowledge that Wang Yangming talks about. Even though they both use the word knowledge in Chinese, it's easy to mix them up. What's Chinese innate knowledge all about? It's basically the real deal when it comes to our emotions and feelings. Take filial piety, for example. That deep respect and love we have for our parents? That's the innate knowledge right there. It's all about our emotions and the core of our feelings. It's a whole different ball game from what Socrates talks about, right? He's all about how we can live a good and valuable life. According to him, the only way to do that is by gaining wisdom. So, he reckons that virtue is all about having knowledge, and that knowledge comes from thinking things through and coming up with concepts. While China gave us Confucius and Laozi, ancient Greece gave us Socrates and later Plato. Socrates didn't write down his philosophical ideas. Instead, he just talked to people all the time, and some of those conversations got written down and put together, showing that they were chats between Socrates and others. What was the point of these talks? It was all about having ongoing discussions about ideas and real knowledge with different folks. What was the starting point for these talks? Knowing that we don't know everything. This is a big deal. What's the first step in getting into philosophy? It's what Socrates was on about, knowing that we don't know everything. We all think we know a lot, especially those who are successful. For example, Socrates met a successful general in the market or on the street, and he said to the general, "I want to ask you a question that I cannot answer because I am ignorant. I heard that you are a general, and you have a lot of knowledge." The general was very proud and said, "Yes, you can ask me whatever you want." Socrates then asked, "What is integrity?" The general confidently replied, "Integrity is being honest and not lying." Socrates then immediately asked him, "If your child got a disease that required a medicine which tastes very bad, and he refuses to take it, what would you do? Would you definitely lie to him and say the medicine tastes good, and then you take it yourself, even though it tastes terrible, just to cure his illness?" Another example, if you lead soldiers into battle and at a critical moment their morale is low, and you tell them that our reinforcements are arriving soon, and if we just hold on a bit longer, then we will definitely win. You are lying, but you win the war. At this moment, is lying considered integrity? He said yes, it should be included on the side of integrity. Stealing is not honest. If one of your friends wants to commit suicide, do you steal what he will use to commit the act, in order to avoid it? Is it honest? Integrity. Finally, the general admitted his ignorance and Socrates got his point through. Understanding the real value of human life ain't no walk in the park. It's not something you can just figure out from experience. What makes a life good, and what makes it bad? Back in 1987, I headed to Shenzhen after a friend invited me. I'd always wanted to check out the famous economic special zone. When I got there, I saw this slogan on the streets, "Time is money, efficiency is life." Man, it really caught me off guard. I mean, life is short and super precious, but does that mean time is also precious? The meaning of our lives is tied to the measure of time. They're trying to make it all about money for your life to have any meaning. How can they even say that? Time is money, efficiency is life. This is how we have lived our lives. First, we strive for money, and second, we strive for efficiency. This is life. At that time, this was widely accepted. Please note that in the initial stage of the reform and opening up, the whole nation wanted to escape poverty, and everyone dreamed of getting rich. These two sentences tell everyone how to get rich. How? By turning your time into money, and seeing efficiency as life itself. This is a concept formed in response to the environment and situation at that time, based on experience. We cannot take it as the truth. Check it out, this is what Socrates was getting at. We all think we know a lot and have plenty of experience, and we reckon we know what life's all about. But then we start to see things aren't quite adding up, so we've got to use our smarts to take a good look at our lives and figure out the real meaning of life and the core values of human society. That's what Socrates was teaching. Socrates was all about talking about the basic values of human society. Then his student, Plato, took it a step further by trying to figure out how the whole universe exists and how everything in it exists. It's not just about the meaning of life, but also about the whole idea of existence. So, that's how ontology became a thing in Plato's philosophy. He was the first guy in Western philosophy to come up with the theory of ontology. And what's his theory? The theory of ideas. Now let's talk about how truth and reality are connected. Plato had this idea called the theory of forms to explain it. So, every actual thing is called by its name, like a table is called a table, a horse is called a horse, a cow is called a cow, but why? It's because they're imitating these perfect forms. It sounds pretty weird, right? Plato's theory of forms says that everything in the real world is called what it is because it's connected to these perfect forms, which he calls participation. For example, if I pick up a hammer and we all agree it's a hammer, why is it a hammer? According to Plato, it's because it's participating in the form of a hammer. It's like it's imitating the perfect idea of a hammer. The reason a bed is because it's imitating the perfect form of a bed, and the reason a horse is because it's imitating the perfect form of a horse, and that's why we call it a horse. It all sounds pretty strange at first. I mean, this hammer is right here, so what perfect form is it imitating? Answering this question is a piece of cake for us. Back in the day, scientists came up with a definition that sets humans apart from animals. They said, humans are the ones who can make and use tools, right? But then, in the 20th century, zoologists saw something mind-blowing. They saw a chimpanzee trying to grab some fruit way up high. It couldn't reach it, but then it spotted two bamboo sticks lying around. It grabbed one of the sticks and tried to reach the fruit, but it wasn't long enough. Then it noticed the other stick. So, the chimpanzee did something like this. It bit one end of one stick to make it pointy, and then stuck it into the other stick. This way, the two shorter sticks became a longer stick. Then it lifted it up and successfully knocked the fruit down. When the zoologists saw this, they were like, wait a minute, isn't this chimp making a tool? Certainly, it's about making tools, even though it's not complicated, it's quite simple. In fact, the tools made by early humans in the Old Stone Age were also very simple. This definition doesn't hold up anymore. The definition of humans as animals that make and use tools doesn't work because chimpanzees can also make and use tools. What to do? Zoologists started publishing papers to discuss this. But really, there's no need to discuss it. Their discussions show their lack of philosophical training. Plato permanently solved this problem with his theory of forms. The thing about tools is, for humans, it's a whole different ball game compared to black chimpanzees. See, because of their smarts, there are times when a chimpanzee can whip up a tool under the pressure of a specific need. But here's the kicker: for the chimp, the tool's existence is all about its physical appearance, like when they join two pieces of bamboo to make a longer one. It's all about the look and feel for them. But for us humans, it's not about how it looks or feels, it's all about the idea in our heads. So, don't sweat it. Just because chimpanzees can make tools, it doesn't change the original definition of humans. It's pretty cool that the animal behaviorists did this experiment in front of the chimpanzees, showing them how to put out a fire. You know, animals are usually scared of fire. So, they lit a big fire and then used a bucket of water to put it out, and let the chimpanzees watch the whole thing. And get this, the chimpanzees have good memories, so the next time they lit a fire and put a bucket of water nearby, the behaviorists hid in the dark to see what the chimpanzees would do. At first, the chimpanzees looked worried when they saw the fire, but then they spotted the wooden bucket and remembered what it was for. The chimpanzee then kind of wobbled over to the bucket, picked it up like a person, and poured the water over the fire, putting it out. The chimpanzee seemed pretty pleased with itself after that. The experiment kept going, and they lit another fire, but this time it was next to the river. And what do you know, there was a wooden bucket sitting right next to the fire, but it was empty. So, let's see what the chimp does. The chimp saw the fire, then spotted the bucket, and it went over and did the tipping thing again, but since there was no water in the bucket, the fire didn't go out. Then it started stomping its feet, not knowing what to do. The funny thing is, the water was right there in the river, but the chimp didn't realize that. After stomping around for a bit, it just gave up and walked away. The animal behavior folks finally got it. The tools the chimp can make are one-time use and have to look a certain way. It needs to have a specific something in that wooden bucket to tip it over. It only knows what's inside the bucket. It doesn't know that what's in the bucket and what's in the river are the same thing. That's something it doesn't know, and that's just like Plato's theory of ideas. How do humans perceive water? It's like an idea, whether it's in a wooden bucket or in a river. And what about hammers? People from different parts of the world all know what a hammer is. It's almost universal. But no group can just pick up their own hammer and say to everyone else, "Hey, this is the real deal." Can they really do that? For instance, the hammers made by Danes might look different from those made by the Chinese. These differences in appearance don't give them the right to claim that their hammer is the real deal. It's just not possible. So, for us humans, hammers and tools exist as ideas in our minds. If we all agreed to get rid of all our tools one day, we wouldn't see any tools around. But would they really be gone? Nope, as soon as we needed them, we'd just make them again. Why? Because the idea of tools is always there in our minds. And you know what they say in English, out of sight, out of mind, which is totally true for animals. Out of sight, out of mind works for animals, but not for humans. Even if something is out of sight, it can still be on our mind. For example, if I need to hammer a tack into this table and my usual hammer is not around, I can still get it done. I just pick up this watch and use it as a hammer. At that moment, is it a watch? No, it's a hammer. The thing that makes a hammer isn't just how it looks. I mean, think about it. Is there a big difference between a regular hammer and the watch I'm holding? Yeah, there's a huge difference. But it's all good, because in my mind, the idea of a hammer is what really matters. So, if I need to nail something into the table, I can just use this watch and bam, it's a hammer now. So, basically, a hammer is just a copy of an idea. Yeah, I get it. Understanding Plato's theory of ideas is the first step. So, getting into Western philosophy at the start is pretty tough, because what he's saying is pretty weird. He's all about how everything is just a not quite perfect copy of an idea.